Bible says in Proverbs chapter 13, verse 16, that a wise man thinks ahead. It also says, and I may be paraphrasing here, that a wise man stores wealth for not just his children, but his children's children. So, this episode and the next two after it will be dealing with faith and finance. Beverly will be interviewing her brother, Willie Smith, who is a financial advisor. And our third episode, I will be interviewing a financial journalist from the New York Times, Emily Flitter. So these next three episodes are all about faith and finances. What to do with the wealth that you have, how to save it, how to manage it, what to invest in, what not to invest in. So these three episodes will be very informative and educational for you. Also, when I come back toward the end of this episode, I got some new news about Meet the Redmonds and where you can watch. We're going to change up some things. You know, when you get bigger, you got to get better. So we got some new exciting things that we're doing, and we want you to stick with us, and we'll bring that to you at the end of this episode. So right now, we're going to get into part one of faith and finances. See you soon.
All right. Hey, everybody. It is Bev Redmond, co-host of Meet the Redmonds. We are excited to be in season 2 of Meet the Redmonds podcast, and you can find us on all social media platforms this season. On Sundays, you'll find us on ocpitv.com, 5:30, no matter the time zone. And then the following week, you can find our uploads on YouTube. We'll also be on Facebook, Threads, Pinterest. We are on Instagram. We are on all the social media platforms that matter to you. Tonight, my husband, Mark, is off duty so that I can speak to one of my favorite people in the world. I always get excited when I get to speak with my fam. And tonight we have my brother, my one and only brother. I was going to say my oldest brother. That's not true. He's the only one. He is a wonderful person. His name is Willie Smith, and he's a financial advisor. And we are talking faith and finances. What to do beyond tithing? What is the strategy for you? How do you, certainly as a person of faith, how do you come at it? How do you approach things? Know that you're making, I would say, godly choices. How to move beyond the basics and get yourself set for the rest of your life, or no matter what phase of your life you're in. So welcome to Meet the Redmonds, my brother, my one and only, Willie Smith. Hey, Will.
Thank you. Sometimes when I hear such a warm intro, I have to stop and say, is that me or what you're talking about?
That's you.
I really appreciate it. And we give Marquel our sentiments. We always enjoy him. So I'm just looking forward to chatting today. Yeah.
He is. Oh, thank you for joining us today. My first question out of the gate on this season 2, we're in the last quarter of the year, thinking about strategies we can make. But before we get there and segue into that, tell us a little bit about you and why finance is your thing and why you think it should be everybody's thing.
Sure. So my journey is very peculiar in a sense. At one point I was a traditional college student. I was going to school. At the time I graduated high school and went to college, my original path was I was looking at athletic training. I even looked at Christian ministry, being a new believer, just giving my life to Christ, and then coupling the two, majoring in one and minoring in the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I always wanted to do, but I always wanted to stay connected to sports and athletics. So I thought I was going to be some type of athletic trainer, work with a sports team. And that didn't necessarily materialize. And so, life just happens. I sat out of school for a couple of years and then endeavored to go back. And I thought I was going to go back on that same track. But in the course of changing jobs, I saved up some money in my retirement, but I didn't know what to do with it. They
Mhm.
give you these options. They tell you that you can roll it over. I didn't know what a rollover was. They say you could keep it. You had the option to keep it, take it out, but then you pay taxes. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how much I was going to pay in taxes. I didn't know
Mhm.
what the consequences would be. And then everyone that I asked didn't really know either. They were like, "Well, I don't know. I always just spent the money." And I talked to someone else. Well, I just took the money. I did. I'm like, "Well, what do you do if you don't want to take the money? Like, what do you do when you just want to save it?" And again, I had a very peculiar journey. So at that time, this is Gary, Indiana. This is Northwest Indiana, right outside of Chicago. So I'm looking in the yellow pages. Again, I'm dating myself because this is pre-Google,
Yeah.
pre-search engine,
Pre-social, all
all
things.
these different things. So I'm looking in the yellow pages and I'm trying to find every investment company that I can find. I'm literally
Mhm.
going looking at I in the yellow pages for investments. Um, I didn't know investment was interchangeable with security. So I didn't know they call it securities. I did a lot of things I just didn't know that I
Mhm.
had to learn. So I set up these appointments all across the area with these different investment companies to go and talk with them on how to invest my money. So I went to your big bank. I went to AG Edwards, which is out of business now.
Mhm.
AG Edwards, I think, turned into Wachovia, and Wachovia went out of
Sophia.
business.
Yeah.
And then I went to Merrill Lynch. I went to pretty much anyone you could think of, which most of these places weren't remote to me. So everything was at least 30, 45-minute drive, maybe even an hour drive from where I live.
Wow.
So that was a struggle, was that there was nothing locally in my neighborhood. Even the banks in my neighborhood didn't have an investment advisor available. So everything for me was a drive to get to. Now you got to recall at that time, I was a blue collar worker. I had a CDL. I drove trucks. I did odd and end jobs. So I have on a flannel shirt, jeans, and Timberland boots. And I'm going to these meetings and I'm going to meet these
Tell
people
me
and
more.
talk
Yeah.
about these things. And they're looking at me like, who is this kid? What is up with him? And I go to this particular firm and the guy meets me out in like the vestibule area. He doesn't even like take me back in his office. And he asked me how much I have to invest, and I tell him, and I can't remember if it was 3,000 or 5,000 or whatever I had saved up at the time. So I tell him, and he says, "Oh, that's Disney. Oh, you definitely want to do Disney." And I was just like, "Oh, so I should invest in Disney." And then he says, "Oh, no, 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 don't invest in Disney. What I'm saying is take your family on vacation and go to Disney." And he was dead
He's
serious. I was
telling
like,
you to, he's dissing you and the amount of money.
yeah, I'm not
Okay.
following. I'm just like, whoa, go to, you're telling me to go. He was just like, yeah, $5,000. Like, that's vacation money. That's not investment money. So I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't know. And then he tells me about like how much you need to open an account. And at that time, I think it was, I don't know, it was something I had never heard of. So I think it
Mhm.
was like 200,000 or 500,000. So I'm just thinking to myself, like, I am completely
This is
outclassed.
totally
Yeah,
out of
this is
my
my head.
possibilities. Yes.
Yeah. And then I go and talk with a few other people, and they don't give me the same spiel, but I basically get a similar experience though, where it's like they're like not taking me too serious, and they're just like, bro, this is, you're out of your league here. And I felt some of it at the time. I felt some of it might have been racial. Then I felt some of it might have been educational. Some of it was about status. It was some a bit of everything, all
Mhm.
of which I was under prepared for. And to make a long story short, I went to my local school where I was going. I was going to Purdue, a Purdue extension at the time, Purdue Calumet.
Yeah.
um,
I think
which is
we're
a big extension.
West
Purdue,
now, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's had about 10,000 students then. So
Hmm.
for it to be a commuter campus, it was a big campus.
It was.
And I was at Purdue. I was taking these classes, and I just said, I'm going to take a business elective. I'm going to take a finance elective, and then made the switch. And I just said, you know what? I need to learn this stuff. I need to get informed and get educated. And it just became like a burning passion of mine. Part of it was just dealing with the rejection and dealing with the denial of not getting service, and that lit a fire under me.
Part of
And
that righteous
right,
innocence.
part of me wanted to just get yeah, get vindication for that, but the other part was I really wanted to know. I really wanted to understand, like, why is this free information out here kept from me?
Yes.
And from people that I know and for people that I care about, why don't we have this information? So I was just on this quest. Like, nothing else really mattered from that point. It was just like I knew that I needed to figure this out.
Hmm.
So I read every book I could. I completely changed my major. I started studying, started learning, and uh, through the course of events, I ended up getting my first finance job. The company I was working with at the time, I was driving trucks and cleaning sewers, as blue collar as you can get.
Yes,
I
you
worked at the local landfill, again, as blue can get, as dirty can get, and as smelly can get. I'd worked all those jobs, and uh, I made a change. I ended up working internally for our finance department. I got my first job as a financial analyst in the corporate world, and then that switched to I became a staff accountant locally, and eventually I progressed. I got promoted. I did some other things, but I always wanted to be an advisor, and I wanted to help other people. I didn't mind helping corporate. The corporate world was fine. I didn't have a lot of bad experiences. I hear some people talk about how bad their experience, but I actually had some very rewarding experiences in my corporate journey. But I
Mhm.
always wanted to help other people. Relocated to Dallas. I had an opportunity to work with Morgan Stanley, which Morgan Stanley was like the number one firm on Wall Street at the time.
Mhm.
And they all take turns. One year it's Goldman Sachs, then it's Morgan Stanley, then it's Merrill Lynch, then it's UBS, and then they go back. It's kind of like football and basketball. You have your top ranked teams, they all take their turn in being
They
who the
do.
number one
Yep.
firm is, right? So I was at Morgan Stanley, and then I was recruited by Edward Jones, and I've been with Edward Jones the last 5 years.
Mhm.
Uh, and I feel like I'm just a student of the game where I'm constantly learning. My business has grown. I have about 270 clients now, which is about the size. When you get to 200 to 300 clients, they tell you need to start shaving off clients and give that to someone more junior. So
Uh-huh.
we've grown over the years. It's what I do full time. I'm not part time at this. This is what I do full
Mhm.
time. I sit and talk with business owners, families, men, women, uh, elderly, young people, everyone in between. We sit
Mhm.
down and we work with them with their financial plans. So I know that was a bit of a story, but that's been my journey.
So
How I
let's
got into this.
let's help the people. That
Yeah.
is that's why you came to
Yeah,
this, and what your major goal in your work is to help folks. When you think
absolutely.
about finances, um, we grew up in church, and our primary
Mhm.
audience is a faith-based audience. Um, when I started out, maybe even when you started out, all we knew was tithing and offering.
Yeah,
And maybe we had a checking account on some good years. Maybe we had a little bit of savings. And my goodness, there was a tax return.
right.
That may have been our early investment strategy. But knowing what you know now, help us demystify some terms. So what's the difference between just banking or checking accounts and getting into things like investment accounts like IRAs, 401?
Sure.
What's the difference?
Yeah, so the world of finance is very dynamic. It's not one dimensional. There's many facets and phases to it, and sometimes I laugh, and sometimes it makes me want to cry.
Same time.
The
Yep.
level of exposure and education that we have regarding these matters. I think about Evander Holyfield,
Hmm.
world-renowned boxing champion, right? Who said that he made millions of dollars, and when he became champion, he took all his money to the guy that sold him his car. He took it to the car dealer. And
Oh,
actually, because that was the biggest financial transaction he had, and that's all he
hmm,
knew at the time. He didn't know any better. That was the extent of his exposure. And so getting exposure is key, and just understanding that it is very dynamic. You do have to have a bank account, but it's not just limited to that. You do need insurance, but it's not just limited to that. And so sometimes we can we can be, what's the term where you become a peg in a hole, where we can basically become pegged in a hole
hmm,
and think that it's just that, but it's so much more than that.
right.
Um, you have to have banking, you have to have accounting, you have to have a CPA, you need a financial advisor, you need an estate planning attorney. As you build and as you grow, you may not have all this starting out,
Starting at
uh,
once.
but but you definitely need those individuals, and you need uh, some area of understanding with that. Just like a doctor or an attorney. There's not just one type of doctor. You just don't have a family practitioner, right?
Hmm.
Uh, you may have a chiropractor. You may have a physical therapist. You may have some neurologist. You may have someone who specializes in one particular field, in another field. Same way that in law, you have a criminal lawyer, you have someone that specializes in litigation, you have someone that specializes in family law, someone specializes in business law,
Hmm.
and so many different areas, right? So it's the same way in finance, and that it's broken up in those different segments, and you have experts in all those fields. And me as a financial planner, I'm kind of like a facilitator or like a quarterback. I help connect everybody.
Hmm.
So I just don't know one particular area. I'm like the quarterback who has to know where every position on the field is.
Right.
And and I help my clients do that. I'm like their personal CFO.
Hmm.
Even if it's something that I don't personally do in-house, I help refer them, uh, whether it's health insurance or disability insurance, something I may not sell or provide. I help connect them with someone who does that. I don't do estate planning. That's probably an
Hmm.
attorney that does that. Um, but I help refer them to the right people to do that. Taxes is another thing. I have networks with CPAs that we sit down and we do those things. So again, it's very dynamic, it's multidimensional. There's
Hmm.
not just one area to know or to learn, but we all need a starting point.
We do.
So many times people come and they're like, where do I even get started? Sometimes it's sitting down with someone like me,
Hmm.
uh, someone who's a financial planner, someone who works as a fiduciary, who is there to work on your behalf in your best interest.
Does it cost a lot of money to get to you? So you told the story of walking through a door and they said, no, you're not qualified to participate. So to see a
Yeah.
person like you, what's the price of admission? Is there a price?
So that's a great question. So that's a yes or no answer, and because it really depends on where you go. And some companies will charge you a fee just for the advice, not just for the work and the transactions that need to be done, but for the advice and for the plan itself. Where I'm at right now, currently, the firm I'm with, we do not charge a separate fee for advice. When a person comes on board, whether they have a small account, starting off with $500 or $1,000, or whether they come to me with $5 million. Um, we have a few different platforms that allow us to tailor our services to that individual. So some
Right.
of them will pay a fee, a flat fee for the year, and some will pay a commission kind of
Mm-hmm.
as you go. But either way, we're very flexible in how we can deal with people.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we have accounts again that have no minimums, and we have accounts that have 25,000, 50,000, and even $500,000 minimums.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something for everybody, so that you don't have to feel intimidated, or you don't have to feel like this isn't for me.
Do
Um,
I need a certain amount of knowledge before I come to you? Can I just come and say, I don't know anything and be
right.
vulnerable in that way?
Yeah. People come to us all the time and they're just getting started. People come to us even that have a lot, but they don't know a lot. So, and what I mean by that is you can you could be a business owner. Let's just say you own a local car wash that's
Mm-hmm.
done very well. You can generate a lot of income, but that doesn't mean that you necessarily know how to manage it, or that you know how to invest it, or that you know what to do long term with those funds.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll come to us for advice and for help. Sometimes I have people that are what we call DIY, do it yourselfers, where they've actually done well starting out investing on their own, but then they've grown to a point where they don't have the time anymore,
Mm-hmm.
or they may not have the interest, or they made a few costly mistakes.
They need a bed.
Yeah, where
They need a
they
plan.
bumped
Yeah.
their head a few times. It's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
me. I don't consider myself a great handyman per se. I mean, I will try some things, right? Uh, but like just say I'm not the best electrician, so I will gladly outsource that because I don't want to make a terrible mistake.
Mm-hmm.
I may be better with like carpentry and some woodworking. That I'm a bit more familiar with, and so certain parts I can do, the other parts I need to outsource. And so I'll get people to come to us who they've done a good job building up their 401k. They've done a good job saving,
Mm-hmm.
but to get to that next level and to turn that corner, they need help from a third party.
So let's start with $500.
Mm-hmm.
That seems, if you're at your entry level, that seems much more doable than, let's say, 1,000 or five. If I have $500, I've saved it up. Maybe I had it in my checking account. Maybe I had it under my mattress, wherever I had it.
Mattress money, yes.
Mattress money, yes. I'm not going on vacation with it. I'm not buying a purse. I'm not buying anything that would depreciate. What do I start with? How do I go about taking care of that $500 and turning it into something more?
So again, these are all great questions. And everything depends on the person and depends on where they're at in life, their age, where they're at in life, and the goals that they're trying to accomplish. Sometimes I wish I could just give, uh, you know, cascade advice across to everyone, and it's
Mm-hmm.
all fitting. Um, but it really just depends on where a person is at. I'm going to make some assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just assume this person is, between 25, 35 years old. What I would tell them would be different than what I would tell someone who's maybe 55 years old. Uh,
Such as myself. I'm not quite at 50. I'm at
you
50.
know,
But yeah,
but
I get it.
starting off, many times when you don't know anything or you're starting off with the minimum, we have to just cover the basics. You know, do you have an emergency fund? Do you have proper protection if, God forbid, if something happens to you?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just provision and investment. Many times it's about protection and insurance. So the first step is to protect yourself should the unexpected occur.
Yes.
So sometimes we have to make sure that our income is protected. If I get injured, can I keep the same income coming in? So that may not be what people want to hear all the time, but again, I'm there to do what's in their best interest. So I have to talk to them
Mm-hmm.
about those types of things and say, hey, let's look at this first
Mm-hmm.
and cover this basis. and then we could talk about all the fun stuff. People want to come to me and ask me about Bitcoin, or they want to ask me about whatever the hot stock is, or they want to ask me about, some great tip that's going to give them double-digit returns.
Yes.
And that's all good stuff. And we can go there. We can do those things. But a lot of times we have to start with the basics. That's like someone trying to learn how to play the drums and they want to, go all over the place. But sometimes you got to start right, left, left. You got to start with that before you get into all the more sophisticated things. Right.
Yep. Fun fact for the audience: you did teach yourself to be a drummer.
Yeah, I did have to do that. But again, you have to start with the basics.
Somewhere. Yes, the basics. Yeah. Absolutely. So making sure the basics are covered.
Yes.
That's where you go first. It may not be the most alluring answer, but making sure your basics are covered.
Make sure your basics are covered. And you know why that's so important is because when the foundation isn't laid right, what do you have to do? You end up having to knock it all down and start over.
Starting back again. So as we are wrapping up segment 1 of Faith and Finances with my brother, financial advisor Willie Smith, want to take this break and close out with our catchphrase that says, "It is not his way, my husband's way, and it's not my way, but we surely do keep it the Redmond way." And we will be back with segment 2 of Faith and Finances with Willie Smith in just a few minutes.
Okay, I'm back. Now, I hope you enjoyed that first episode of Faith and Finances, part 1, with Beverly and her brother, Willie Smith. And I hope that you were able to glean some nuggets and snippets of what it takes to be a financial advisor and Willie's road to his career path. Now, I told you we had some exciting news. Here's the exciting news. You can now watch Meet the Redmonds every Sunday at 5:30 p.m. You can catch us on YouTube at Meet the Redmonds. Hit video, you'll see us there. You can go to Facebook at Meet the Redmonds. You can see us there. And then you can watch OCPITV.com and see us there too. All at 5:30, whatever time zone you're in, Eastern, Western, Mountain, or Central. Also check out our Instagram reels, our thread reels, our Pinterest reels. So you can catch us all over the place. We're trying to take Meet the Redmonds bigger and better and upward and onward. We're bringing to you good content, so very informative episode today, even more informative next week. So I'm going to leave you now with our catchphrase. It's not my wife's way, it's not my way, but it's the Redmond way. See you soon. Peace.
It's Bev.
And it's Mark.
And we are
the Redmonds.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Meet the Redmonds. And guess what?